Coach, you got me?
I do.
All righty, let's open it up to questions. We'll start with James Kripia from the Oregonian.
Joe, it's certainly been a long time since a lot of people on the staff have been affiliated with an outcome quite like that. How do you sum up things offensively and from your perspective, and just where you go about trying to make corrections and adjustments in terms of this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's just disappointing. You know what I mean? That we had a great opportunity on a national stage against a quality opponent and, didn't go out and coach well or perform well. So the things that you do from this are look at the film, identify the things you did poorly, work to correct them. And at the same time, seeing that there were some positives and work to build off of them. And you put it behind you on Sunday and you move on to your next opponent. So, that's kind of the way we approached it.
Zach Neal, Ducks Wire.
Coach, the receiver room looks a lot different now than it did even 10 days ago. How have you seen players kind of react to that? And have you seen anyone really step up and try and fill that leadership void right now?
Yeah. With guys with such experience and leadership and productivity in big games to lose, Johnny and Jay Red, that's obviously, a tough pill to swallow for us as an offense and certainly for the receiving core as well. But, I think, you've seen some young guys step up. Chris Hudson had the biggest day of his career, had a really nice game. Devin's continuing his improvement and productivity. And, guys like Troy and Dante getting out there, as true freshmen. So, like I said, it hurts to lose guys like Johnny and Jay Red, and that really stings. But, Coach has an next man up mentality, and I think those young guys, stepped into that game and did a nice job.
Luciano Chatelain, end zoners.
Hey, Coach, I hope we're doing well, and thanks for your time. What were the main issues on third and fourth down that made it so hard on you to keep drives alive?
You said third and fourth down?
Yep.
Yeah, we ended up, I think we ended up was 8 of 14 maybe, or 6 of 14 on third down, which isn't, I mean, we were well over 50%. I guess 8 of 14 wouldn't be in the 40% range. But I think the situation that you saw this past Saturday that was different than other games where we had done really, really well on third down is we got ourselves into third and long and third and extra long situations where, those are difficult to protect. They're difficult to get open. Those are situations where you're behind the sticks and, makes it real tough to convert. And we did hit a couple of them, but that's why it's critical to stay ahead of the chains with effective gains on first and second down. So you stay out of those extra long situations on third down.
Eric Scopel, 247 Sports.
Which maybe this is us just watching from afar, but it seemed like the chemistry maybe between Anthony and some of the receivers, especially the ones who haven't been playing much, was maybe just not quite to where it needs to be. Is that a fair assessment? And then I guess how do you accomplish improving chemistry at this point in the season with limited practice days before such a big game?
Yeah, I don't. I think there were some. I think we actually our vertical game. I think. Chris and AB were on sync. I think Devin was targeted a bunch of times. I know Dante had the one drop early and came back and caught his next 2 targets. And then the one where we were not on the same page was Troy was running the crossing route. And, we didn't allow him to get to his landmark and we threw it a little bit late behind him. So I don't know that I'd say out of sync or not on the same page, but, the passing game is about timing and spacing. When you have a bunch of younger guys in there that, necessarily haven't done it, on that stage for a long time, there are going to be some little things that you need to work out that may look a little bit disjointed. But I wouldn't say a lot of times on different pages, but there were some little things that we needed to clean up for sure.
James.
Joe, do you recall ever having a game where people look at the box score and go, oh, well, Travis didn't get enough carries, didn't get enough touches, and here's this great player who's not getting enough. But when it's 28-0, you're not going to run the ball a lot. I get that. But the reason why he was taken out in a way was it was just so circumstantial. It wasn't like you weren't running on P and 10, but like you mentioned, there were just some errors where it was a holding call or something where you can't necessarily run on 2nd and 19. So have you ever had a game where a running back was taken out more due to circumstance than anything?
Not that I can recall offhand, but I'm sure there's ones where game situations, predicate a little bit different approach in your play calling. You know, in the first half, I think the biggest thing was we didn't turn it over, and we were decent on third down, but to me, we weren't able to capitalize on opportunities in the red zone. I think we had 3 drives in the first half that, excluding that very, very last one there. I think we were 3 and out, and then we were down and score and we missed a couple field goals there. And then in the second half, we had 3 drives. We scored, got into scoring range, and then I think got down to the 5 and only got 7 points away from that. But yeah, we chart run pass by down and distance and overall run pass in the booth. So we're monitoring that thing throughout the course of the game, and it was fairly balanced in the first half. But then, like as you mentioned, when you're down that amount in the second half, a plotting, balanced, run oriented scheme isn't gonna get you back. So no, I can't recall it. 1, 2, I'm sure it's happened in the past, and certainly not having Travis and Byron touch the ball when we're in a game situation where it's going to be balanced that's less than ideal.
Jared Denny, Scoop Duck on 3.
Hey, Joe, I know Troy is listed at X on the depth chart. I'm just kind of curious how comfortable he is, or how comfortable you guys are with him at the other receiver positions, and how that could kind of factor into how him and Dante's reps are kind of split up going forward.
Yeah, that's something we kind of talked about coming out of the game, that Troy, in terms of his football IQ and his ability to learn and BMAC cross training those guys, he'll do the same. He'll be the backup X, and then he'll also get some reps at the Z, whereas Dante's more of a strictly a Z guy, and Chris can play Z and H, and then 7 was in there. It's a slot. Yeah, I mean, Troy's real sharp. He can pick up those positions. His skill set matches what we asked both of those guys to do. And, we're going to have rotation with the numbers of guys that we have. There's going to have to be, some rotation and guys, bouncing around to different positions.
Matt Preem, 247 Sports.
Yeah, Joe, just your thoughts on Oregon State and the defense that they're present, and the challenges that come with playing them.
Yeah, they since the change of defensive coordinator, there really hasn't been much schematically that's different. They play 3 down and 4 down front. They're mostly a closed middle secondary, playing a lot of 1, a little bit of 3. But the biggest thing is their pressure, interior pressures out of the odd front, and then, edge pressures out of the 4 down stuff. So that's something we have to be ready for, just in terms of players. Number 2, I think is a fantastic Pac-12 player, does a real nice job. 34, 36, and then 3, who plays the nickel, do a real nice job at the second level. And on number 1, the right corner has really stuck out. And they play hard, great motor, a lot of passion. And, the last 2 games against Stanford and Arizona State, they've really elevated their level of play.
Eric?
Coach, obviously you've been in the coaching ranks for a really long time. You've been in your fair share of big wins and tough losses. I'm curious, coming off a tough loss like this, if there are maybe early indicators from a team and a culture perspective, like in the locker room at practice, that show up that kind of maybe put your concerns at ease in terms of where the team's headspace is at, and kind of how this group has stacked up in the last couple of days off of that tough one in Salt Lake.
Yeah, there's certainly been, you're 24. There's unfortunately there's games like this that occur, and it's the opportunity to bounce back. And they talk about it, adversity. Like, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond. And number 1, I think we'll fall back on the culture that Coach Cristobal has built and established here. And we addressed it. We talked about the things that went wrong, what we needed to do to avoid it happening again. And coach speak, there's an old saying, you can't let the same game beat you twice. So if we're focused on Utah and the things that went wrong there, and continue to let that thing linger, that's obviously going to affect Oregon State. But I think between Coach Cristobal's message on Sunday and our players and our leadership, that they're looking out the front windshield instead of the rearview mirror. So I think that's very positive, very good.
Sorry, Coach. James.
You're good.
Not for excuses here, Joe, more for context. Just when you have that kind of churn at the receiver position, and 3 of your top 4 guys from the week earlier aren't there. And I realize, again, yes, the freshmen were taking reps with second team. They were, yeah, sure. But to what extent between them being out, some of your best perimeter blockers being out, did that compromise in the first half just how much of the playbook was available to you or not, by way of things that you could do? And then in the second half, when AB clearly was gutting out, being bent back pretty good, and said after the game, it didn't matter how injured he is, he's going to do what he's going to do and play for his teammates. But he clearly was gutting out something.
Yeah, I think the young guys did a really nice job during the week, taking the information from the meeting room and applying it on the field in practice. And there weren't a ton of assignment busts. You know, there were some things, as you guys mentioned a little bit earlier, maybe a step off here, a little bit of a throw off there. But I thought they did a really nice job. We really didn't scale back anything that we were doing from a schematic standpoint, because those young guys were in there, and we wanted to put them in a position to be successful. And then obviously the second half where we had to throw it. And I thought, AB really showed a lot of resolve, standing in there, pushing the ball down the field. And I really thought, in a game where you're looking for some bright spots, because there weren't a ton of them. I thought, Devin, 5 for 81, I guess. Chris was near 100 for the first time in his career, and both Troy and Dante had some nice catches. That's certainly, something upon which we'd like to build.
Time for two more. Jared?
It looked like Robbie Ashford didn't make the trip to Salt Lake. I'm just wondering if he's okay, if there's an injury there or something. And I know the Bradley Yaff's a guy that we never really talk about or ask about, but what does he sort of just bring to that quarterback room on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, Robbie's a little bit banged up with an injury that prevented him from traveling. So he's fine. He's just recovering from just a low injury sustained in practice. And Brad Yaff is a guy that has been here a long time. He's a graduating senior, really understands the game, has a high football IQ, but has also embraced his role. He does a phenomenal job with the scout team throughout the course of the week and takes a lot of pride in getting our defense prepared with the looks that they're going to see. But, sits in our position meetings, takes diligent notes, and, gives a lot of brings a lot of maturity to the room. He gets great grades. He's a super smart kid. And I'm sure he's going to have a lot of success after football ends here. But, he's an invaluable member of the position room and of the team.
Last question, Eric.
Just sticking on the wide receiver conversation here. Obviously, we saw the complement of guys that have played a fair amount this year, or kind of in that rotation. I'm curious, guys that made the trip and played a little in the fourth quarter, maybe even a guy like Isaiah who didn't play, but is kind of, he made the trip. And just like, how have you seen the progress, and what's your confidence in the depth after you get past your first 5 or 6 right now?
Yeah, I think same thing. You're building and working, and Isaiah's in a position now where coming in as a young guy, and wasn't a mid-year enrollee, like the other guys. So that his learning curve was a little bit steeper throughout the course of fall camp in the season. And Crocker's done a real nice job in practice the past few weeks, and Spencer Curtis, he's like a Swiss Army knife. He's another guy that you can put in any position, and he's able to function fairly well, and had a catch there at the end. So yeah, outside of the guys that we've talked about, early on in the our deal here, there are other guys behind those that are continuing to work, continuing to get better, and whether it's this season or into next year, I think I'll have an opportunity to contribute.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Awesome, guys. Y'all have a great day. Appreciate your time as well.